Okay. I'll take the first item if that's all right. Talking about the AMI infrastructure that we have. Just for a little background on this, we currently have AMR technology. We started installing it in 2003. I think it took about to 2007. We were actually fully going with AMR. AMR is a drive-by where you pick up the reads from your vehicle. And in 2013, we looked at AMI, and we're kind of weighing out, what are we going to get from AMI? We were going to get, and you've got a staff report on there too that for some reason didn't go out. But Jim, we'll have a staff report for you over here too. That I don't know why it didn't get in the packet, but we have a staff report on this. But in 2013, we looked at a conversion from AMR to AMI. We looked at some of the benefits that we could get from it. It's the constant reporting instead of driving by. It's headquarters. At headquarters, we would be picking up signals via about 4 or 5 or maybe 6 towers, depending on what we wanted to do. And some of the benefits were leak detection would be possible. We can look at variances between what reads are from a certain area compared to what reads are from different delivery points in our trunk system. Eventually we could have customers set up where they can go online, log into their account, and see what their continuous reads, read every hour or read every 10 minutes, whatever we wanted to do. We considered those benefits along with the cost, and the cost was $5.3 million at the time in 2013. So we kind of, weighing one with the other, it's like, couldn't quite see the 5.3 million cost exceeding the value that we get from it. So we said, let's wait and see what technology does, and so here we're at this point again where we're reconsidering the project. The biggest expense of that $5.3 million was something called the MXUs, or the endpoints. The endpoints are in every box. Oh, Gina has. You're going to miss out on. We actually have props, Jim. Sorry, you're going to miss out on this. But Gina is with us, and she brought an actual MXU. That thing goes in the meter box itself. And then for some lids, you actually see that black thing coming off the top of the lid. To pick up and send the signals. So right now, it's the same thing installed for the AMR, and when the AMR, when a truck goes by, it sends a signal, tells the MXU to wake up and send me the read. It collects the read and then says another signal, okay, shut down now. So what that does, it saves battery life. Instead of constantly sending out a signal, it waits for the vehicle to drive by, and from their unit send something out. So anyway, the difference with AMI is going to be there's a tower that picks up between 4,000 and 10,000 meters that sends that signal. And so actually from our office, from our headquarters, we can be picking up these reads instead of driving. The biggest cost was these MXUs that we're looking at now. They're right now they're about $181 each. And at the time we looked at AMI before, we had less than 2,000 that were compatible with both the AMR and AMI technology. And little by little, as these endpoints die, we're replacing them with the compatible technology that's both read by AMR and AMI. So now we have over 6,000 of these endpoints out there. And that was the biggest expense when we looked at it before. So now we're only looking at, if we were to convert the whole district, it's about $2.8 million worth of endpoints. But what we've been exploring and thinking about and talking to Olivenhain about too on a joint project is to do a pilot. And in one particular site that would also be of benefit to Olivenhain is our double peaks tank, because they can read their right. So to give you background on Olivenhain, they're always a little bit ahead of us on the metering technology. So they went with AMR first, and then we went with AMR. Now they have 4 towers already, so not quite half of their district, I believe, they're picking up reads by this new technology, this new AMI technology. They're having some issues with it, and it's kind of nice that they're doing it first, so we can, learn from what they've gone through. But they're very interested in the joint project, and we want to tell you about a pilot project that we're thinking about right now. And so the pilot project would be putting up a tower. We have a 40-foot tower currently at Double Peak, but we would need a 60-foot tower. And first what we would do is do what's called a propagation study. And Census is the manufacturer of the equipment that we'd be using. And they did this for us before, and I don't think I put it in the staff report. Yeah, I put some on this page, on the back page, put some things about the last propagation study that was done. And all the propagation study means is they kind of sense, okay, from this tower we're going to pick up this many meters, or from this tower configuration we can pick up, at this level of accuracy we can pick up this signal. So it kind of tells you how many towers you need to put up, where you need to put them up. Maybe if you're doing a slow migration, in other words, one tower a year, or to defer some of the costs or defer the costs, tells you which are the best towers to put up first. Double Peak wasn't the best tower, but we're going to do this again. A 2013 propagation study needs to be updated because the technology is a little better right now. So even to do the propagation study, we're going to go ahead and put a 60-foot tower at Double Peak, and so they can do because there's a big berm around the Double Peak area, and we need to try to get beyond the shadow of the berm for sending a signal. So anyway, so the next step in the process is getting that 60-foot tower up, and then Census coming out. It only costs like $600, but they're going to do a propagation study, and then similar to what you'll see on the staff report, we'll get this other layout and map. But this time we're going to say, well, what does just one tower look like? What if we just did Double Peaks? And then maybe at the same time, Olevenhain will do something too, to kind of see where they're at. And what we would like to do is be able to get the cost and define the project to get it in the budget. So, and it might be, and depending on the committee and the board here, it might be dependent on if we get grant money. So, but if we have a defined project, especially if it's regional, us and Olevenhain, we had a good shot at grant money for it. So we'll be taking a look at that. But we wanted to let you know as a committee what we're pursuing and where we're at, and to report out particularly to the board, maybe when next time we meet as a board, to kind of describe what we've talked about today. And it's kind of outlined for you in the staff report when you get here. But anyway, so that's what we're looking at, and we just think that the chances are better to do something like this now that the cost is down. We can maybe move some of the endpoints to the region. I have a big map here for you too that shows the red dots on this map. Jim, sorry you can't see it, but the red dots are the sending units that are already compatible with AMI. So you'll see the potential for coverage, and then we've got on the map some of the tower sites where we'll be looking at with the propagation study. So after we have the propagation study done and we're closer to defining the project, we'll meet again as a committee. We'll bring it to the committee again for an update. But if there are any questions, that's all I had to present for you today, unless there's any questions. And Gina bought both the MXU, and we also have the iPearl meter. The iPearl makes it very easy to install this. It works best off the AMI meter.
Perfect. Driver's seat.
Okay, next.
Well, I do have a question.
Is this compatible with both?
Correct. That's
This is the one.
the one that's compatible. It looked the same pretty much as the other one, but
No,
now
that's
it's
what I was
compatible.
wondering, because I do see those in existing meter.
This is the map that shows the red dots are the ones that are already compatible. These are meter locations, and they already would work with AMI. And then the other ones, the blue ones, are the ones we'd have to convert. So there are 6,030 of these red dots.
So where would you put? I mean, that's the whole meter, right?
Correct. That's the whole meter. This kind of is in a box. This node. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm stealing Gina's fire. and this connects to. It leaves plenty of room so you can
Oh,
pull
so-
out the lid.
So both of these would
This
go-
is inside,
Oh,
like
I
that.
thought they were for different.
So when you pull the lid, usually this is in the lid.
Right.
If you have the new lid, sometimes they're just sitting in a box, but they still send the signal. So you pull it out. Yeah.
So what about older existing meters? Do you just need to put this in?
Well, that
Or do
and
you have
Gina's got a
adapter?
register.
Oh, gotcha.
So we'd have to change out the register to make it compatible.
And that connects to that.
Correct. Same thing. So this one doesn't have it. There's hardly any moving parts in
That's a
this
full
thing.
installation, and this is the converter.
Correct. How many iPearls do we have out there? Do you know?
No, I don't.
Touch.
I'd have to.
It's thousands now, right?
Thousands. Oh yes.
Yeah, it's
So
thousands.
of that 6,000, some are these.
Probably like 2,000.
Okay.
But they may be scattered. They might not be in the area that we want to do. Double peaks is right here. So the pilot would probably be double peaks to pick up San Alejo.
Yeah, I got double peak up right here with the arrows
thank
right there. So
And that would benefit Olevenham because they don't have towers in that area currently that they could pick up on their side.
double peak's pretty
South
much
of
the
us.
top. Basically,
Would they help us in the cost of this?
Yes.
Yeah,
So that would be a joint venture.
it's kind of
And this would pick up some of the red dots, or just these red dots?
well, that's the propagation study to tell us that.
You'd have to
Ah.
figure out.
So we'll have to wait. The problem with the propagation study they did before, this was, you got a staff report there. It looked at a tower configuration and you didn't know which tower was picking up which meter. So this time when we do the propagation study, we're going to say, hey, just show us what this one tower picks up. And then we can define the project to see how many MXUs we would need to switch out.
Yeah.
The red dots show us,
What the ones that are already set for AMI. Just need to put up a tower and pick up these signals.
okay, because I'm very interested in this. I just got my bill again, and I'm gonna have you check my meter, because I got no leaks, and this thing is clicking 1 unit every 10 seconds. I don't know how big a unit is. on it.
Probably not a unit, but a point.
That might
Well, whatever
be,
the last digit
Yeah,
is.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's a hundredth of
On the
a
little
unit.
red tab telltale.
It's
If
a
you
hundredth
could
of a
change
what?
it.
Yeah, it's a hundredth of a
You
unit.
get everything
probably.
shut off.
Well, when I say a unit, I don't mean 700.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, you mean
Yeah.
just a click on the
Just a
little
click.
red
It's a
dial.
tattletale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Mine is 2 actually. I just asked Gina when they replaced my register.
well, yeah, but I mean, that's like 8,600 or more clicks. So I don't, and
Yeah.
I got this $300 water bill, and I'm going, what's going on?
Yeah.
I-
It's the alternative
I found-
revenue sources that we're trying to find.
I found my water, my irrigation shutoff valve.
Yeah.
The actual valve is just dripping at the top of the stem, just drip, drip, drip. It's not dripping enough that it's creating a puddle anymore.
Yeah.
But I found it last week on mine.
And no, I mean, I may have found the same thing, but I can't believe that's $100 a month. I mean, it's tier 3,
Hmm.
so that's what I wanted. But so the red, and that's where I'm trying to see which one is mulberry here.
Yeah, you're probably there's mixed all over because one
Well, no, I can't see. The road is not defined this way. This is
Mulberry
Mission, this is Mission.
is-
Here's Twin Oaks.
Where's Mulberry?
Well, that's what I'm looking for. Oh, it must be
Here,
over here.
yeah.
That's mulberry.
This is mulberry.
This is Hollandia right here.
Yeah. So okay, so this has got to be
That's
Rose,
you. Yep.
my area right in
That's you
here.
right- that's you right there.
So some of these are, because I do have the drive-by for sure.
Yeah, both of these are compatible with both
Mhm.
drive-by and AM. The red ones are both compatible. The only difference is the blue ones are only compatible with AMR, but
Yes.
the red ones are compatible with both.
Yes.
And it's just when they go out, boom, we replace it with the new one.
Okay. All right.
And since 2013, we've made some pretty good progress
Yeah, right.
in getting
And of course, the ultimate goal for the ratepayer, I think, is okay. I got this terrible bill. Let me check it daily and see what's going on. If I make some adjustments, and it minimizes that.
Not only that is as the district grows, the technology will keep us from needing to hire additional staff just to do meter routes.
Right.
So we could cover that. Obviously, there's more maintenance involved, so there'll be repurposing of staff too.
So with the study, it will tell us where other towers could be placed.
Yeah, we're gonna see these locations. we'll do the propagation study again
Oh,
with these locations.
these are the towers.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And then,
Potential sites.
and then we have like
Ed-
scenarios.
Ed
that we can
also
do.
said that we can add any additional sites we want to on there for the propagation study, and it doesn't cost any extra
Oh, very
No.
nice.
to have multiples.
This is probably the ones that it would probably be less than these to pick up everything.
Oh.
You know, and even if we have 8 towers in there, it still won't pick up everything. There'll still be areas that we'll need to drive to that
Okay.
just doesn't make
Yeah.
practical sense to,
Diminishing return.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And you can see that on the staff report on the second thing. This was the 2013 study, but that second table, that was kind of telling you what each tower picked up, and that's what we'll get again.
So the cost to purchase the rest of the endpoints is about 2.8 million.
2.8 million.
So
That's
what's-
the biggest cost. The other cost.
Well, yeah, what would the other costs?
The
be
other
with the rest of
costs
the tower?
are the tower, the tower bases, TGB, they're called the gateway base. So, and that's about 50 grand for to put up at these tower sites. So that's not a big cost, just 50 grand for the actual tower itself. But there's the installation of the tower. There's the installation of these, converting these, the installation cost. This is $181. But then to get it installed, you have to add the labor and stuff, and then we have to see. Well, we don't have
So it's
enough
probably
staff to
another
do it. You got to
couple
hire
million, probably.
a contractor. Yeah, and then also the software. So we have we'll have software installations and an annual software certs and maintenance agreements with that as well. And that's about anything else you can think of for cost wise.
I think you covered it all.
Yeah,
The propagation study, $600?
yeah,
Well, that's no brainer.
yeah. I actually tried to get him to waive it, but split that.
So the steps would be, we do the propagation study,
yes.
then we know where the towers are most likely to be placed. Then we can determine areas that we may want to prioritize
We
and
can run scenarios. We can
Yeah.
say, hey, what about just these 4 towers?
Yeah,
What do they
right.
cover? Just these 3, or yeah. But specifically for the pilot, we can say, turn off all of them in your study and just keep double peaks on. What does that cover? And then we can identify and what's at least at a minimum what's picked up by the biggest signal, and make sure that those endpoints within that area are all AMI compatible. And maybe we can define a project like that first.
so defining the project first and then getting with Olivenheim to see what the shared cost would be.
Exactly, yeah. They are, we're talking with them. I actually sent them this report too,
Yeah.
just today, and to let them know that we're talking so they know. And then hopefully at the same time, they have the same equipment, the same distributor. So when they do the study, we'll let them know, hey, you might want to include, for double peak, include the
Right.
Olevenhaim's
Mhm.
area too, so we can see how they can benefit from it.
And timeline on all this?
Well, right now we already approved a PO to put up the tower at Double Peak. So before they actually do the propagation study, we're going to put up a 60-foot tower. Do you know if they did that already?
No, I don't know.
Okay. That'll be pretty quick. That shouldn't be too. There's already a 40-foot tower up there. I don't know if they have to change the base. The bases are huge on these towers, so we'll see. And then they can. I would imagine by. I didn't get a solid
This is
timeline,
the
but
location right here.
probably at the end of the year they'll have end of the fiscal year, end of the calendar year, excuse me. They should hopefully have a propagation study. So that's when we'll come after we have a propagation study and a defined boundary. Then we'll come back to the committee and kind of show you the progress and what we're contemplating on including in a test area, pilot area.
Yeah, are you gonna try to I know it's really hard, are you gonna try to monetize the benefit to kind of weigh it against the project cost?
It's not just hard; it's impossible.
I know it is.
Because you're talking about qualitative benefits.
Right.
So this is when we say ROI with this one, the R is customer service. The R is what kind of information are you going to give to your. There's a little bit of a benefit here when next time we do our cost of service study. Hey, we can have better information to isolate peaking, although we don't. The main driver is not peaking for our cost; it's just supply. But so there are some here. The tough part about quantifying the benefits for the district, the big chunk of time saving is when we converted from walking routes to AMR. Boom. the difference now is only, well, driving a car, picking it up, driving a vehicle and picking it up. So that it's much much smaller margin.
So what's the impact on labor from going?
That's what we'll the part that we can quantify is probably not so much labor, but liability. With taking all the trucks off the road that we can take off now, it's going to save us cost of equipment and maintaining trucks and having to buy new vehicles. Save us on our workers' comp possibly. We'll check with JPIA to see if there's some insurance savings that we can
How
have.
about labor requirements?
That's what I was
Yeah.
alluding to. And as the district builds out, there will be, obviously, under the current status using AMR, you'd have more routes and more potential as the district actually builds out. But this would obviously quantify and help reduce that for future projections. But it wouldn't still be a complete, because no matter what now, you still have maintenance, you still have other.
We did this exact same thing at Rancho, 8-9 years ago, and we first went to AMR and then eventually AMI
Yeah.
for the whole district, and you got to be really
How many
careful
people did you
because
add?
well, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
There was this big labor savings in meter readers,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
what
we-
we found is you convert a meter reader
Yes.
to a different type of employee. They become
Yeah.
a network technician, or I don't know what we ended up calling them, but they went from one function kind to another. It never really did result in a labor savings. But they became a different kind of employee.
Same thing at Padre Dam, same thing
Yeah.
where we visit, same thing at Olivenhain now. They have more meter readers than we have, and they have half their district converted. So the one thing that to paint both sides of the picture, just to kind of lay it out what Olivenhain's going through right now, is they have 4 towers, and then they get their misreads. And so, which happens, might be a car over the
So you send
Park
somebody
it.
out in a drive-by.
So you send somebody to drive, and we ask them, well, then what the hell's the difference? If you're driving, picking up, and if they're scattered, that you have to pick up, well, that vehicle has to travel, pick up all those things. Well, why don't they just travel and pick up the reads like for
Well, the
AMR?
biggest gain is the
So-
functionality of having a web-based
Yep.
Yes,
application
but
that
that's
customers
the
can.
qualitative part of it. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's qualitative. That's so I'm warning you ahead of time. It's
I've
not gonna-
I've been through it. Yeah,
It's
I've been
not
through
gonna-
this drill.
if you're just looking just hardcore costs, it's like it's not going to pencil out because we're right now Gina will tell you we're down a meter reader. We did not backfill a position when we're down. We actually have to temporarily staff up to do some changes in route realignment, for example, and for the pilot we'll have to do contract out labor for that. So it'll certainly make the department run a little more smoother and more efficiency and better customer service.
And my understanding as far as labor costs, it's really just projected labor costs. I would say it's not existing labor, because exactly that, you got to convert.
Yeah.
There's other tasks that come out. You still have the rear reads, but then since we still have almost 30% growth in our water system, that's in theory
Well,
that's
hopefully
30%
it'll save
more
in the
labor.
future.
Yeah, I think the labor's already saved on AMR, like James was saying. When we converted to AMR, we had 13,000 meters. Now we have over 22,000 meters, and we have one less staff person in meters. So
hopefully we
Savings
kind of
are-
hold the line. on
exactly,
future
yeah.
growth.
So when the growth comes, boom, we've got a good system in place. So,
Gina will just have to do more work.
Nobody's
be the
off.
supervisor.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
Lee will enjoy the freedom.
Somehow I believe you're going to have to put together your analysis so that it's, even if we don't save a great deal of money, what are we going to save even with the expanded district
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the customer service opportunity? I mean, that's really where I'm going with
Whatever
it.
you can monetize.
Yeah.
I know how hard it is, but whatever you can
Yeah.
monetize,
Yeah.
I think is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that customer service equation
Yeah.
that I can look at it and go, well, what's
Yeah.
this little bump every 10 seconds?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
over a month, I'm going to talk to engineering to find out what that is, because,
But we'll send you customer service.
yeah, customer service. Well, there we go, because it's 87,000 little clicks.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you say that can't be a hundredth of a unit, Because my God, that's a bunch of
Can't figure that out
units.
in my
So
head.
it's gonna be even
It's
less
less,
than that.
yeah.
Yeah, thousandth of a unit. But nonetheless, I think that would be the big benefit
Yeah.
for the ratepayers.
And so you know where Leeuwenhoek is at with that. They didn't pull that trigger yet to put a portal that they make available to their customers. They haven't
Mhm.
done that yet. But and we won't either during this pilot.
Right.
I don't know if we can or not during. Well, we'll explore that too to see if we can. But yeah, so that's like another step.
Yeah,
in
you
the
won't
process.
get you won't get a lot of customers do
No.
that. Kind of the tech savvy customers will want
Yeah.
to do that. But,
Yeah.
And I mean, really, I mean, I would pay the money to see
Yeah.
this because this is the second time this has happened to me. I actually went on to see if I
Did
could
you
get
get
the.
that in the minutes?
Well,
He'd pay the
I
money.
went to see if I could get the leak discount
Mm-hmm.
in '03.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to look at that policy because really every 10 years you should be able to get a retro. But in '03 I had a leak and I took advantage then. She said, "You only get it once, Jim." And I went,
I've gotten one, so I've had 3 leaks in the same spot.
"Yeah,
The original. I blame the original guy. It's the original irrigations. It is.
yeah."
I've
yeah.
dug 3 holes in my front yard. I know.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously for $600, we're gonna certainly recommend to get that done.
Yeah, we
And then
want to
work
get,
with
like I said, a
Leeuwenhoek on
project
the whole
defined.
process.
And if we get grant money, that's
Well, that's
great,
the other
you know.
thing. The
Well, Leeuwenhoek
Leeuwenhoek's-
attempted to get grant money. They did a joint thing with Santa Fe, and I guess they awarded like 5. Was it 84? Maybe it was probably 84 money at the time, and they were like number 6, so they didn't get grant money.
Ah.
So it's competitive, and that's why.
Well, yeah, but at
Great to
least
have a
they're
Leeuwenhoek.
going after the grant money. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
and we will too.
Oh, good.
And I don't know if is there money in Prop 1A. I don't know. We'll find out where the money is and go for it. Yeah. Anyway, and we'll keep you posted as we progress.
Ah, perfect timing.
Okay. Oh, this is our boys and girls.
Yep. I'll take the next item. Come on in.
Sorry I was late, but I think.
Oh, hey, it worked out.
Yeah.
Worked out great.
Yeah.
Technology.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say when I
Good
go,
battery
hey,
life.
I already talked to our attorney. I can Skype in from your
Sit at the
board
table?
meeting.
Sit at the galley?
Sit at the table.
Sit at the table.
Grab a seat.
You're
Grab a
next,
seat.
okay?
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you, Gina.
Darn,
Here's mine. The finance guy had a map out.
Yeah,
Finance
scary.
guy? What?
It's scary.
It is.
I was nervous, sweaty palms and all. So.
You're still
Okay,
alive.
ready, Jim?
Yes. Next.
Alright, so next we're going to talk about groundwater funding. As the committee may recall, we've met a couple times on this, and we've kind of gone full circle. So at the last meeting we had on this, basically, the direction was, take a look at our options to try and get some funding to do a study, to do a feasibility study, basically, on how we can use the groundwater. So I met with Woodard and Kern, with both Scott and Rosalind, and we had a long discussion about this. And one of the things, there's funding options available, but it depends on which pool you go. It depends on how you want to use the groundwater, whether it's to desalt it, whether it's to use it as recycled water, whether it's to use it as drinkable water, drinking water. And then, so at the last committee meeting, we kind of discussed this, and one of the directions that General Manager Prum had was to bring consultants in, and I keep on wanting to say RMC, but Woodard, as the committee here knows, Woodard and Curran has been working with EWA on its water project. Also been working with the North County Recycled Water Coalition on its feasibility study and water reuse and recycled water project. So they had really direct experience with basically more than one input from where Vallecitos would be looking at getting some water sources. So we thought it'd be prudent to bring them in to kind of talk in general about funding sources and answer questions that staff doesn't have the expertise necessary to answer to the committee.
Have you got new cards?
I do. Would you like them?
We have co-branded cards.
Oh, co-brand.
It's still co-brand.
I
You
have-
have your new ones?
I have the new
Ooh,
ones.
Uh-oh.
fancy. I don't
Look
have,
at this
See, look,
guy.
I
I
got the
don't
new
have
one
new
from
ones yet.
Oh, see.
Thanks.
My name is Rosalind.
Yes.
I see that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Oh, see, uh-huh. So now it's Woodward and Kern, absolute, no co-branding.
Well, supposedly as of the first of the year, but
Oh.
we moved, so they gave us.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah, first of the year.
All right, first of the year,
First of
so
the year.
it's right up to a certain report.
And I did get an email that said it's officially Woodward and Kern.
Okay,
Oh, well,
that's-
maybe it
as long as we got
Well,
this.
it may have said first of the year, I just didn't read the whole
You
email.
gotta read all the words, James, that's
It
what
said
gets me
remember
more
we're
trouble.
transitioning,
Yes.
Yeah, well, as long as the people are the same.
Yes, no one's gonna know
Okay.
it.
So, in general, our main discussion with staff was basically one of the things that we have to do is actually do a feasibility study. I was able to get basically a scope to do a feasibility study, and I didn't bring the scope with me today, but it was about 55,000 roughly, and change. And thank you. So it was about 55,000 and change to basically do a feasibility study. And what that feasibility study would do is provide the district with its options on. I always print this out on my
Yeah,
it's
I
hard to see. Its options on how to use the groundwater, but there wouldn't be any funding for that feasibility study available. Is that accurate? Or not?
Not in advance of the study. So there's a number of different options for cost recovery,
Mhm.
depending on what direction that you choose to go in, if you choose to proceed. But there's not really a funding pot that we can apply for in advance.
But we have to choose to proceed,
Correct.
Yes.
then go after a reimbursement, if you will.
And then that pot depends on which way we go, right? Whether it's desalting the existing water, trying to get yield from the existing basin, putting water in for some type of conjunctive use, recycled water use, or using an IPR type of stance. Those were, I believe, the three main tracks, maybe the only tracks. So,
I guess going back in my mind, before that, one of the one of the things that they keep being chided at the board meeting is, we got no water out there anyway, Jim. What are we doing all this study about? And I'm going, well, I know we got water out there. People are pumping out there. And would the feasibility study have or give us any new information as to how much water is there?
Well, the way we scoped it, it was, we weren't gonna be doing any actual investigation into the ground, because once you start getting to that level, it can get a lot more involved.
Mm-hmm.
So our analysis was gonna be more desktop, using available information, and then we had a legal component to just at least get a water rights attorney to tell us what your claim on the water would be, what you'd have to go through to be able to develop a project in that basin. And again, it depends on the type of project you develop as to what you might need to go through.
so one of the things that we did, Jim, is the original scope and fee that I was in the RFP that I drafted up was to do exactly that, to actually get boots on the ground, test monitoring wells in, and that was that $500,000 plus scope.
Right.
So then we backed off to, okay, how can we get funding? Well, what I've been educated on now is you need to figure out how to use the water to go after a funding pot. In Vallecitos right now, as far as from a board direction and from a staff direction, from a technical direction, we don't really know what the best use of that water is or how much water is available. So really, we've added another step. But to add that other step, hopefully, is to get a significant funding source to do what you want to do, which is actually define where the basin is, how much yield is in that basin, and how we can use it. So we've added that extra step. So now what we're talking about today is that extra step,
Right.
which is basically a study that would need board approval and committee direction and board approval to go after, which in hopes that based on the end of that, we have some type of funding source to go over to see if there's board will to go after a several $1 million venture. So
The way we structured this scope of work was more at a concept study. So
Right.
let's look at our three options, let's explore that as far as we can in the desktop, and then let's figure out, if you choose to go with this path, what are your next steps? What are the soft costs that you'll need to invest in, and how can we fund those over time? And so with each of the individual tracks, we'll sort of lay out what the path forward would be and what the, I wouldn't say probability, but what the, you know, best probably option, the preferred option would be based on what we know now. That would lead you to writing an actual feasibility study for the preferred option.
Right, and taking the information that we've had and that we have had from Olivenhain, from Encina, excuse me, Encina, maybe there's 2 million gallons out there. Okay. Now, whether it's desalting or irrigation or ultimately potable, if it's, in my mind, if it's desalted, then what the heck are we gonna do with it?
Then it's potable, but then you gotta get rid of the salt.
Right.
So
If it's for irrigation, then it's purple pipe someplace, right?
then we have to build a purple pipe system.
Right. Which everybody is saying makes no sense. At least that's what I'm hearing. And then turning it into potable,
Then-
then you gotta pipe it someplace, but at least
But we-
everybody could use it.
But we need a treatment plant.
Yeah.
So
We can't take it any place. Well, can we pipe it to Meadowlark?
no, you need a drinking water treatment plant.
Yeah.
So, but
Okay.
at that point, if the salt content is low, you could do a smaller like microfiltration,
Yeah.
a small footprint treatment plant.
And of course, the study would tell us that.
So the concept study, the way we're looking at it right now, is doing similar to what Olivenhain has been doing, but looking what's on the surface and making a lot of assumptions about the groundwater basin, not actually doing the groundwater model.
Right,
and the
right.
tests and all that. So, you know, we have the same issues in Olivenhain. We've got brine disposal, we've got to locate a treatment plant, we've got to treat the water to make it drinkable. And we don't really even have a lot of quality information on the existing groundwater, but we're gonna make a lot of assumptions and then say, okay, based on all the assumptions, does it even make any sense to invest any additional money or not? Are we gonna be at $1,500 an acre foot or $3,000 an acre foot?
So there's really my understanding is there's really two paths forward if we move forward with this. We could go for that $500,000 plus feasibility study where in the feasibility study, we evaluate how we want to use the water and how much water we have. We do all that work and then go after funding sources based on that. Or we do this almost little study in the front end to figure out what the best use of the water is based on our district makeup and our district desires. And then we go after funding sources to try and do the feasibility study for that specific use.
Mhm.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so we added another step and we kind of added another study, but based on the committee's direction was, you know, there's no way we're going to want to bring a $500,000 plus scope to the board
Right.
with no funding source. So
Right.
we're hoping that we could bring something else to the committee and get direction if we want to bring that to the board. And based on this, it's I guess we're only putting a toe in.
Right.
But it's still, we have to put something in because there's no funding source to do.
This piece.
Yes. There might be reimbursement though.
Yeah,
Right, right.
potentially there could be
Yes.
in the future.
So this toe in the water step will define or give us options as to what the probable uses could be and the funding for each one of those three options.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
the goal is at the end of it, we pick a use and we go after funding. And if we're successful going after funding, whether we're successful or not, it'd be a board call whether we move forward with that larger scope.
Yeah.
So who would you use for the legal aspect? Would that be your own person?
Within the-
No, we have a
Yeah.
relationship with a gentleman, David Algium at Downey Brand,
Okay.
that we've worked with on various groundwater rights issues. Most recently, you know, on IPR projects and you know, what water rights. Or
Yeah,
water
to me,
rights.
that's the bigger challenge here, is the legal aspect.
Yeah, even
Because
if
the pumpers are all got overlying water rights, and pretty strong,
most of them predate us, or the
yeah,
bigger ones predate
pretty
us.
strong positions.
Now, in the Olivenhain's case, they've done the modeling and determined how much water they can take above and beyond what's currently pumped, so
Yeah,
they're not planning to impact.
yeah, so I think that would
pumpers.
eventually be important to know here.
It's adjudication.
Well, it's not adjudicated now.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
people
It's
that pump and
historic
blend.
overliers. Yeah.
Right.
So if we've got 2 million and there's 500,000 already being pumped, we could use the other 1.5 million without worrying about adjudication.
Maybe.
Well, yeah,
Maybe.
and one of
It's
the arguments that Lemonade using moving forward is eventually the space basin's gonna have to get managed. It's not gonna allow, indiscriminate pumping forever. So better for the water district to come in and sort of manage it for everyone's benefit, rather than just let it continue until the
Right.
state comes in.
Now, my understanding, and it hasn't been studied, but from Phyllis with Todd Engineering, is we may have 1 to 2 million, and the pumpers should take 3 or 4.
The pumpers that are out there?
Yeah. That's my understanding from.
What's our-
and those aren't
2
the exact
million-
numbers.
2
but
million gallons per what?
Day.
Per day? I can't believe that, James.
That's my understanding from and the
From
number
who?
from Phyllis with Todd Engineering when that did the initial study is there's more pumping capacity within than the yield.
Oh, the capacity, but not the use.
No,
They
the capacity.
could.
But that's what they're reserving their capacity.
Yeah, but, I know half a dozen of the users out there right now. And there's no big agricultural use that I know of.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just telling you what I was
Well,
told. by that
what
group,
I'm
so.
suggesting is they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I think it'd be more important to know what the historical actual pumping.
Yeah, exactly.
So if somebody, the way she explained it, if somebody owned the well, predates Vallecitos water treatment,
Oh.
the well has historic uses of
Right.
X amount of gallons a minute,
Right,
we'd have a hard time going in there and saying you can only take 50 gallons a minute because that's what you've been taking in the last several years when their historical uses are 200, 300, 400 gallons a minute, something to that effect. And those numbers, are
Right,
numbers she
right,
just
right.
made up, but those are examples.
well,
of-
that's what I'm saying,
So what they're taking today doesn't necessarily mean that's what their rights are,
based on their former use.
based
No.
on their former rights.
Yeah, their former rights.
Mhm.
Well, I've been here 40 years, and going through my mind, the wells that half a dozen wells that I know weren't around in 40 years. The only one that may have been around was the one that was on the horse ranch that is now the development out there in Twin Oaks.
Well, the university also has historic wells out there that they have rights to. That just because they're not using it, they may not give them up. And there's wells up in the Twin Oaks Valley with the old farmlands,
Right, that's
and the cow
the one.
ranch. Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to.
And there's also historic wells that are along the northern, or really not northern, along the creek from the old farmland that used to be there.
Yeah, the horse ranch that used to be there.
And I'm talking about one up in Twin Oaks too. So
Yeah, that's the
so basically
Trussell Ranch.
Yeah.
Trussell Ranch was
Yeah.
up there.
So basically, when you look at it, they
Yeah.
ran out of groundwater pumping capacity in the 50s for the existing uses. And my understanding from when we started doing some tabletop research is those wells still exist. They weren't abandoned. Not that they're being used, but they still exist. So those wells have certain rights that go with them.
Mhm.
I don't know what they are, but at the time in the 50s, when there was a lot more agricultural use, they
Right.
ran out of groundwater.
Uh-huh.
And which led to the formation of Vallecitos or San Marcos.
Right.
So
And so those wells, unless they were abandoned, if they were just shut off, they have that capacity right.
they have some rights, yeah. And I wouldn't know exactly how that
Okay,
works,
well.
but yeah. So what we know today doesn't necessarily mean what the rights are today.
Right. And I'm going to be bold and say that I think we have to make this step. Because if not, it's just going to be this big question about whether or not it could be, might be, and, you
No,
know,
I think it's appropriate to spend.
the 50,
order.
yeah, the 50,000, and
With the
begin to
actual
find out
legal
what-
task, it would
well,
be
that's-
65.
Yeah, it'd be 65 if we get the actual legal task.
oh,
So it's,
well, I think we better do that too.
so
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
it's at the I can't see it. It's too small. I gotta look at it on my computer. Okay, so what is the committee's direction to bring this forward to the board with the optional tasks?
With a recommendation
With
to
a
do it
recommendation?
all.
Okay.
Look, I
Then-
mean, the legal and the study.
Is there any other questions that you guys have for? I even have my glasses on. It's okay.
Yeah, you know
There's
what?
there's two optional tasks. I gotta go there.
There's three.
There's
So
three?
we've got additional progress meetings. We bumped those down, and then we've got the SRF planning grant. So I put together a little table. I'll talk through it very quickly. with a couple of our different funding options. So as James said, there's different funding programs that could provide us with dollars to recover the cost of this in a feasibility study. If we would like to go with a potable project, we can pursue drinking water state revolving fund dollars. Those are low interest loans. There is some grants available, but they're generally for disadvantaged communities.
Just, are you reading from one of yours?
The top box. I'm
fund and
paraphrasing.
Uh-huh,
The top box is the drinking water SRF.
uh-huh.
Mostly low interest loans. We could potentially get a little sliver of grant for the very small disadvantaged community pockets that are within the Vallecitos service area, but really most of what your opportunity there is to get a loan at half the geo bond rate. So
Do these all go through the IRWM?
no. Mm-mm.
It's the same as you do.
Yeah. If we decide to go with something more like, if you choose the IPR project, where you're looking at recharging the basin with recycled water because you need to add more supply to the basin in order to then extract that supply, there's opportunity for clean water SRF, which is identical program but on the wastewater recycled water side, mostly low income, low interest loans, a little bit of grant, but again, it'll be just a smidge for this service area.
So with those two programs, it's not free money, it's gonna be low interest money.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we can apply for multiple of the programs. I've given you 5 of the sort of major 5 players in the funding world for water wastewater projects. We can apply for multiple programs. For Sweetwater Authority's Reynolds facility, we have 3 different grants. So we've gotten a federal grant and 2 state grants for them, combined with an SRF loan. So we're really maximizing each of these facilities, and that's a brackish desalter down there. If you turn, go ahead.
Could any of this qualify for MET's LRP?
That's a
Yes.
really good question.
If we end up moving forward with a recycled water program, we're making wet water, so to speak, we're offsetting use in LRP. Now, as you are familiar with the LRP program, there's still litigation, there's a lot of stuff going on, and the district is actually working right now to try and move forward through CWA's
For the DSA?
for the desal, yeah. And so that'll be challenging in itself, and that's what I spend most of my time on lately. And basically, what we'd be looking for is that wouldn't pay for anything except it gives a discount on the acre foot. So depending on what the acre foot costs us on producing this water. If
James,
it's
I think even the desalter's eligible for
Yeah.
LRP without the recycled.
no, any of it, yeah. But it's just as long as the cost is above the net cost,
Yeah.
and so.
It's still uncertain with everything that's going on, which is why I didn't put it on the sheet, but as it firms up, that's definitely something that if we're doing the concept study and we're looking at options, we would calculate that into the total as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add on the clean water SRF, they often have grant money mixed in there and they'll just give it to you if they have it. The Prop 1 grant money is all gone, but I just submitted an application through Kemper and they get $2.5 million grant for a green projects initiative grant that they have that the legislature approved. And that's the max that you can get. So you never know what they have,
Right.
and they usually just throw that in.
And
Yeah.
one little point, and the Med LRP won't pay for any of the studies or implementation. It's
Right.
really
It's
on the back end.
commodity
Correct.
discount.
Yeah.
So,
if you- go ahead.
go ahead. So just to educate me, this first funding is for clean water completely.
Potable system.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the second one,
Recycle basically.
Recycled water.
oh, there we go, recycle.
Mhm.
And the
So
third one,
on the back side are the IRWM program. That's a program that receives water bond money from the state, but it's actually implemented at the regional level. So the Water Authority, the City of San Diego, and the County of San Diego are in the driver's seat on that program. And it's got a lot more flexibility than some of the state programs, and the application process is significantly less intensive than any of the other programs. The neat thing about IRWM is that they like integrated projects. So you have to have a capital component, but if you have a capital project that you can, you know, create a reasonably logical story about why that capital project is related to this concept study or the feasibility study, you can get all of the feasibility study funded through it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be construction of whatever your full-scale project is that you're doing the feasibility study on. They can be two slightly different projects as long as they're coupled together. It's sort of the
So in other words, Jim,
funny about
if we do this study, right, and then let's say we're doing a portable reuse type project comes out of it, and we have a pipeline that we're going to be putting in, and we can say, and the pipeline is going to convey this potable water in the future. That could be the capital project, and tied to this study that kind of led to this pipeline. That's the capital component. As long as you, and then we could get some reimbursement or grants for that pipeline, and also the previous study.
But
Yeah,
you
they
have
don't-
to say it's you know, to get that other benefit, and make
Yeah.
it more attractive.
Well,
It's
if that-
interagency, we could,
yeah,
this
if it-
pipeline could be intertied with.
Well, no, not it's integrated, not intertied. So in other words, it's
No, but I mean-
integrated into our system. We're going to put regular water through it right now, but then we'll put this reuse water through it in the
Exactly.
But
future.
to try to sell it regionally to.
That's
compete
just
for grants.
better for
That's,
competition.
that's what I'm saying. But
Exactly.
hopefully we will be able to
exactly.
put that component in. Yeah,
It would be stronger for at the regional competition
yeah,
level.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that one's got a lot of flexibility, and it's in the near term. Next summer, they're going to have the next solicitation, and so if you want cost recovery for this concept study, you need to start thinking about what is the capital project you're going to tie it to that is definitely going to
For
move
next fiscal
forward
year.
for the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
Exactly. The middle box down on the back side is DWR's desalination grant. And so this is a grant program. They're actually moving toward round 5. Round 4 just happened. We haven't heard the awards yet, but it actually funded the feasibility study for Alevenhain, and then we just applied for the design pilot for Alevenhain. So it's neat because it's got multiple categories. You can apply for money for the feasibility study. Then if that works out, you can come back and apply for the long-term pump testing and some of the groundwater studies with the design pilot application. If that proves out, then you can come back and apply for capital money. I'm not exactly sure how much money is left in the overall pot for desal because they are on round 5, but it is a really nice program that gives you a couple of different categories to pursue. If you wanted to do your feasibility study through that program, then you'd want to finish your concept study so that you were ready, so that you had that in hand and you could attach it to your feasibility study application. You know, we've done the concept work, here it is, we're ready to move forward, and I think that would be a good option for you if you decide to move forward. And that's if you're doing desal. So that's if you're moving forward with a desalter. Even if in the future at some point IPR may be integrated into that, this would be really staying focused on what can we get out of this particular basin in terms of extraction and treatment. And then the last one down at the bottom, I added this since the last time we talked, James, and this is Bureau's WIN program. Water Infrastructure for the Nation Act that was passed by Congress last year, and it essentially opens up the Title 16 program to new projects. Title 16 is water reuse and reclamation projects. It includes recycled water reuse and desalters, and the WIN Act allows us to put forward new projects through a feasibility study process. You write a feasibility study, the Bureau approves your feasibility study, and then that opens up the grant solicitations. You can get up to $20 million, 25% of your total capital costs through the WIN program. And the solicitations happen annually, and so you'd go back. It's sort of the Tin Cup Tuesday, right? You go back. Okay, we need a $1.5 million this year. Okay, we need $2 million next year.
Jim's gone back to Washington for the North County Recycle Water.
Yeah, right, and they've got
two or
an
three times.
application in now.
We
Yeah.
do have an application.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Mhm. So it's that same one.
It's the
Right.
same program. So
We're-
we've been competing.
We don't have a project in this last
Right.
application. Vallecitos does not have a project because we don't have something that's going to be constructed by
September 2019.
2019. That's why.
Oh, constructed.
It has to be
We can't
constructed.
use this feasibility study in that group.
Well, so that would be a decision process that you all need to make.
Well, I think that the point is the existing feasibility study that's been approved does not include
Yes.
It does not include
Yeah,
this.
Does
No.
not include
No.
this. This is new.
Any agency can submit multiple feasibility studies for different projects. So that's the interesting part about WIN. It's also going to significantly increase the competitiveness of that program over time as folks start submitting applications. And you'd be in competition with the North County Coalition. And so there's that, and the projects that you have in that feasibility study.
And just so you know, that's pretty normal. We submit as a group, and then an agency like Escondido that might have a very expensive project, or Oceanside, for example, might have a very expensive project. They choose to leave out of the group submittal and submit by themselves. So they end up competing with themselves, so to speak, but they're going after a bigger pot.
Right.
But kind of leads me to ask, when I've asked for this, what projects are involved in the regional?
There are 3 in this last round, right?
application. There's many more in the feasibility study.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true. So we don't in this last application for last round. Vallecitos does not have a project, but in the feasibility study, we have expansion of Meadowlark CCTs. For example, we have a small recycled water system that we have to still make a board decision on to expand. Those are our main projects. That's for Vallecitos. The rest of the agencies all have their pieces also.
Yeah, but the 3 that are going forward with the application that is presently, I'm told it's very close to being approved, and then the expenditure will be next year.
Yes.
That's what's been discussed all along.
Yes.
What 3 projects are those?
Carlsbad has a recycled water pipeline. Oceanside has their tertiary expansion, and Rincon.
I thought it was
Lucadia, yes. Lucadia has a secondary force main rehab project.
Okay.
And those are all projects that are all secret already that were basically in construction or about to be in construction.
Right.
So.
They had to be built by September 2019. They were really the only 3 projects that the group could pull the trigger on in that
Okay.
time frame.
But that was the application that went in already. There's another solicitation out right now.
It hasn't released yet.
Okay.
It's supposed to be released in the next few weeks. So what they do is they do an annual solicitation. They call it an FOA, Funding Opportunity Announcement. And so the FOAs generally hit in the fall after they've done their budgeting, and their fiscal year closes on September 30th. And then they release the FOA for the next fiscal year. So it usually hits October, November. They told us with some of the complications happening in Washington right now that they don't expect the next FOA until early December. But we've already begun discussions at the coalition about, all right, if it hits next month, what are we going to put in our next
Start
one?
thinking about it. Yeah.
And that'll be construction through September 2020.
That's a physical construction of some facility.
Correct.
Yep. And for Vallecitos, the only project that we're looking at is the expansion of the chlorine contact tanks, which is the bottleneck in our system to get it up from 5 to 6.5 MGD. Even if we don't have a recycled water use or a IPR or DPR use available, it would still get benefit out of it because during peak periods we'd be able to produce more recycled water now. We wouldn't be able to produce 6.5 MGD
Right.
total, but we'd be able to peak up to 6.5 MGD, which would probably give us another 500,000 to 750,000 a day at best.
And this kind of pushes, in my mind, the need for this strategic plan that we've been talking about.
For Vallecitos, yes. Yeah. This
So
is,
that we kind of have a map as to where the heck we're going.
Yep.
Okay, so back to the present. With the, and just educate me here, with the study that we're going to do, once the study is accomplished, do we have to select any one of these, or can we go after all of them?
You'll
and
have-
see which one.
It depends on where the dollars fall, what the cost of the water would be, so, yeah. So
And you'll know that with the
You'll
study.
know that at the end. One of them is dependent on Encina's project, which, you know, that is still moving forward, but it's a long way out.
Yeah.
And you'll know how, that compares with doing non-potable or potable. So
Your
that's,
study would tell us that though, those
yes,
dollars.
that's the idea, is
Mhm.
we'll get a range of costs.
Mhm.
And within a certain comfort level, again, a lot of assumptions as to what the groundwater basin is gonna yield.
Right.
And
Well,
one of the things I'm gonna add a comment, now that I understand where we're moving forward with this is for a while when we were working as a coalition group with the city of San Marcos and City Escondido and the school district and for the Lake San Marcos litigation,
Right.
we did some studies with some groundwater testing, mainly just in the creek bed there, not of the upper basin, which has better water quality, but it's harder to get to.
Yeah.
With the shallow basin, which is more surface water influence,
Up there at the creek.
along upstream of Lake San Marcos
Yeah.
in the creek. But if I could get some of that information with the water quality information, because there's 3 quarterly reports that we are still part of before everybody went to the corners.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm going to add a meeting with the city and try and get some of that information from the city. I think it's that litigation's cooled off now that they may share. They may not, but they may share.
Okay.
Because they took the lead, so they end up getting all the information. But I do have some draft information in my email files, so
All right.
which may or may not be helpful, but at least it's something. So they're doing water quality testing, tasting for what the groundwater is influencing into the lake, which is an impaired body. That's what they're testing for.
Whatever data we can get.
Yeah. So it'll be much more recent than 1967.
Good.
Does that make sense, Greg?
So just so I have clarification, so I'll make a couple edits to this.
Question on that one, we had the SRF planning grant application as an optional task. in
We
there.
did,
We're
that
gonna
was
cut that
before
out,
we
right?
realized that you already had a planning grant
Yep.
for the clean water SRF.
Yeah,
So
that-
I would strike that.
Yeah, that's
option.
why I said there's 2 options.
Yeah.
Not 3.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. But so we're gonna make a couple edits to this and bring something. It'll be similar in scope and fee, maybe a little higher because there will be a couple more meetings with the city. But to the board for recommendation, and it obviously won't be at this week's board meeting, so it'll be either the first one or second one in December, or first one in January. if we
Yeah, because I don't think we
Yeah, we're not
we
gonna
don't
have
have one the second one.
So I'll try and get on the next meeting, but if I don't, it'll be the first one in January. But I'll try and shoot for the first one in December if I can.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want your part back? Okay, just keep it. Yep. So I'll just send you an email with a couple of things to add. It's going to be just in your general scope, and there's going to be a meeting with the city and probably another document or 2 to review.
Okay.
So the one thing on that planning grant, I was gonna mention, so you do have it in your existing one, you mentioned the groundwater.
Yeah.
So it's not something we would do now, but
We could go back to the
you
well.
might be able to go back, because they, for facility planning level, if it turns out the study looks feasible and you wanna move forward, then you could do an application specific to the groundwater, because what you did, you pretty much
It's-
discounted.
Yeah.
And so we could, depend,
Because it would be a
that's,
different project.
be a different project, and it depends on the person, and I don't know the contact person.
Gabriel.
I haven't worked with Gabe.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so it's would be a phone call to him to
Mostly
see
on
how
the
open he
side.
would be to accepting that. And it would have to include a recycled water component for them to fund it.
Yeah,
But
if you want, you could just email Rob Scholl. He'll give you Gabriel's contact information if you need it.
Okay.
So.
yeah, but that's a $75,000 planning grant, 50/50, up to 75.
And just one of the things that we're gonna vet out in the study, and granted these are planning numbers, is what the cost would be
Exactly.
for implementation of the options.
Oh,
compared to the
yeah,
amount of
yeah.
groundwater, so you can see the acre foot, dollars per acre foot
Yes,
cost.
yes.
And understanding that some of these grants will give you maybe 25% of that, so the district's still in for 75, so you can see the scope and the breadth of and
Mhm.
also how long it would take.
Yes.
Yeah, because these aren't 1-2 year projects, so.
No, nothing in the water business is 1 or 2 years. Jeez.
Well, that's the next subject, it's a 1 or 2 year project. So, thank you
It's great
guys.
to meet you both.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kirsten, later. Thanks, James.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. I'll send you an email probably today
All
or
right.
tomorrow.
Thanks, James. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So you realize if Encina moves forward with a raw water pipeline right into our district, it wouldn't make sense to develop the groundwater at all. It would make sense just to build a microfiltration treatment plant, take that water right out of there, because if you put it in the ground, you'd have to pump it out of the ground to a treatment plant, treat it anyway. But if they get it approved regulatory wise, you build a baffle tank, basically a holding tank that can hold the water for the 2 to 4 hours or whatever you're trying to get, or 8 hours, which has constant monitoring. You build a microfiltration treatment plant because the water's going to be drinking water quality anyway. Then you put it through, you chlorinate, you put it right into the system. Then you have it. So basically, you bypass the groundwater, all the.
DPR.
No, it's actually raw water augmentation, but it's basically DPR with a raw water pipe in
We had this argument this morning.
Yeah, we had the same argument this morning. And it would basically be under the raw water treatment rules, which is next, but almost like a DPR project. But the only problem is it's still probably going to be more expensive than doubling our desal tank, because we have the option in 8 years to double our desal tank. And Vallecitos' challenge is the valley right here along the 78 corridor. So where's the 78 here? I'm kind of turned around.
Right there.
There's the lake.
There it is. Yep. Okay. So this valley, this is where majority of our use is, from here to here. Majority of our customers use. We have too much water in that valley. We have, we'll have the option of getting up to 7,000 acre-feet a year of desal water coming into that valley, and then
Right.
we have another 2 MGD of raw water coming from whether it's groundwater or kind of a DPR type project.
From Olivenine?
From
Iwa.
Iwa.
Iwa?
Then you have another 2 MGD there, which is roughly 2,000, a little less, a little bit more than 2,000 acre feet, got 2,500 acre feet. So you can have a potential of getting 10,000 acre feet of water in that valley, and we can't use it. So we'd have to
Sounds
wheel
like
it,
a-
pump it out. We'd have
Sounds
to
like
do
a happy
something.
problem.
It's not a bad problem. We just got, and now, the desal water costs. We don't have to build any infrastructure for that. Yeah.
Right,
But
but
it's still CWA. It's not, it's new water, but it's not.
Right. But one of the options at Encina is create this water, send it to desal plant.
Yeah,
And then
that's
distribute
what,
it.
But at that point, we're just getting it from our existing pipe.
Right.
So yeah, and we don't have to do anything. But that's 20 years away. The raw water augmentation may be 10 to 15.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so basically the way Scott explained it to the North, he did a presentation to the North County Coalition Group, is the way they see the regulations is you got indirect potable reuse, and the regulators want to see that in action for X amount of years. They want to vet it out, and then next, with indirect potable reuse, there's two things: there's groundwater and surface water. Okay, and they have rules for that now.
Yeah.
So once those are vetted, which will be 5, 6 to 10 years, meanwhile they'll start working on the raw water augmentation rules. So, which is the next thing. Once raw water augmentation is vetted, which is 5, 10 years, then we'll start talking about direct potable. So when you line up that train with the overlaps of where that train is, you're not even talking about direct potable reuse starting for another 10 years. And then going another 10 years before it's implemented, really, with the rules. But raw water might be 10 to 15 years away. Indirect's here, so it might be, the rules and everything might be standardized within the next 5 to 10 years. Because we've been working on it for
That
years.
could change if there's another 5-year drought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then there's value in moving forward with a concept, and then the question is the value of leading the concept and taking that cost burden, or waiting for someone else to lead the concept and taking that cost burden and then jumping in when you know when a lot of that trial and error period is over. So, if you're ready.
Yeah. All right.
So I brought Jason here, but this is the men's locker room expansion. We brought you guys a set of plans.
Oh, good. Look at that.
Yeah, they're 80 pages. I didn't print up more than I had to. Sorry, trying to save costs. It's tabbed along the side. Basically, the yellow tabs are the base bid and the alternate bid. That base. Oh,
No, so as a board, as a committee may recall, so the last direction on this was go ahead and make that smaller footprint locker room only, no bathroom, just locker room only.
Yep.
And go ahead and continue with the larger footprint bathroom, locker room as the alternate bid. So you get a price for both. X out anything about rehabbing the existing men's bathroom
Right?
or the women's bathroom. Lower, and I'm taking some of your thunder away.
no, all of it.
Lower the height. so basically, what you're looking at here is the
These are the
architect's drawings. We still have comments on it, but the architect's drawings that has that base bid, which is smaller, and the alternative bid. Okay. Sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why it's separated: the base bid, the alternate bid, and this highlighted sheet just kind of lists those things that Mr. Gumpel mentioned, that we took the direction from the board, and so both the base bid and the alternate, we limited the sidewalk, new sidewalk, we limited sidewalk replacement, we took out the epoxy flooring and went with just bare concrete. We took the tile off the walls and went bare painted gypsum. We changed the wall type from the concrete tilt-up to just a painted stucco. We reduced the height from 19 to 15 feet. We didn't do any of the replacements on the existing facilities, and then we also took over, we incorporated the HVAC into these plans as opposed to going third party, hoping again to sort of reduce that construction cost. So both the base bid of the smaller footprint, 522 square feet, as well as the alternate base bid of 783 square feet, have those reductions in them. The only difference between the alternate is that we have the additional showers and sinks with all the plumbing that goes with that, and that added footprint, of course, now has some additional lockers, and an additional 9 lockers. So
Do we have a architect's estimate on these two?
I do not have that yet. This is just the first round of the revised plans.
What is your schedule?
I tabbed in red just some of the highlighted sheets. If you just want to quickly look at those ones, that'll just give you a sense of what that footprint looks like when you review it. And I do not have the new specs or the estimate yet. That's kind of the next round. And
Any idea when that is going to be?
I don't have a hard date, but I can get that for you. I think they want to, they had some questions on these sets of plans, some of the things that we're looking for, arrangement, orientation of the bench, some of these minor things that they're looking input from us. And then once we get that, I'll have a schedule for the estimate.
And the committee may also recall we did add in so we get a competitive price on the HVAC, the fire sprinkler alarm.
Right.
So that's all part of these sets also now, which added to the plan sets, and the in which the I think was brought to the, or was just made aware. The committee was aware that the additional costs. We let the committee know of several meetings ago.
Yeah, so at this point, we're looking to do a review of the plans. I've just done a cursory review just to make sure that those main things that we were looking for were implemented, and they are. Now it's, will be going, myself and my staff will kind of be going through a fine-tooth comb, checking the details, all those kind of things. But wanted to get it in front of you first to make sure that, yes, this is the direction that we want to go through. My guess is if we start the review, I could get these plans back to Jeff Katz next week. I don't, just after cursory review, they didn't look too bad, so I imagine we would get a pretty quick turnaround. And with that next turnaround, we'd get the specs and the estimate, and then can decide if we're going out to bid or not.
Intuitively, you have any guesses what the cost is going to be?
You know, the engineer's estimate is never as good as the architect's estimate.
Liars.
Honestly, Director Hernandez, I haven't put.
Well, you know,
I just got these.
I just did one at 300. I did one at $400 a square foot. The 400 makes me choke, but it's a public works project, and we just did prevailing wage, and we just did one at, we had the ribbon cutting at Oceanside West Basin, which is a pretty simple building, stud and stucco. That was $400 a square foot, but it did have the major bathroom component in it.
How big was it? Was it
It was 5,000 feet.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that
so
makes,
you
this
scale
is
it
a
out,
small project.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
if we can get this at $300 a square foot,
Well, it wasn't, don't you get more economy of scale?
Yeah.
It's 5,000
Yeah.
$400 square
but I
foot.
took out the bathrooms
Yeah, but still.
because it's just a box now.
500 square foot though.
If I, you know, even at the 400, that's 208,000,
Yeah.
209,000. Well, that's way different than the 800 that we started.
I'm
with.
guessing it's going to be over 300,000.
You think it's going to be over
Yeah,
300?
I was thinking 4, but yeah.
Well, even if
I
it's
don't feel
4,
well
that's
building.
safe.
It's still better than 8. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
So
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Was our
that's
last
the
estimate?
smaller footprint building that I'm talking about.
Our price tag on the last round was 653, 6 and
It's,
change,
yeah, the
somewhere
800 was the
around
total
there.
budget cost. It's
Exactly.
650 was the cost of the was the
Construction.
bid.
Yeah, that was the actual
Yeah.
construction cost.
well, if we can get that in half, that'll make it worth the effort. All right. Well, I'll keep this in my notes just as a gauge.
Sure.
All right. Well, you know,
So-
we're pressing ahead.
So we're pressing ahead. So the next steps for us is obviously get everything out. With the timing of the holidays, and Jason, this is a little more of a question, not a statement. You can keep that if you want.
I don't need to keep it.
All right, here we go.
Light reading?
So with the holidays, it may or may not have an opportunity to bring it back to the committee. I could, but we could have give it to General Manager Froome as we got this and we have an estimate and we're planning on bidding it out. So when we have the estimate, would that be, is that all that's really missing before we get the green light to go bid it out, or is there anything else that the committee wants to see?
I don't, you know, if we get the plan done,
Yeah.
send it out. You can give us the estimate while we're in process.
Okay, that's
I mean,
that's what we'll
that's
do.
my opinion. We don't need to hear the estimate to go out.
Yeah, well, I know that the committee wanted to look at things beforehand, but now that we got the plan pretty
Yeah.
much done and we got the reduced scope,
Right.
we'll go ahead and send it out. But I'll let the general manager know when it's going out to let the board know. Just in general, we're sending that out to
Right.
bid
And
here are the dates. And we'll have an estimate by then, but because it's
yeah,
on
I
our-
mean, this is November.
it's going to be towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's
Fix
something
things
on the
good.
agenda coming up that we would have an engineering committee in December.
Yeah, but we may not be ready.
Right.
Yeah,
Where
that's
I
what I'm
was
saying.
going with that was, if not, then you know, we'd at least hear a verbal update, and then we'd know that we.
My guess is the earliest you're going to hear the verbal update is January 1st or 2nd meeting.
Okay.
It is really, we'll be out to bids probably in January sometime, and
Yeah.
you'll get that verbal update
Okay.
at the,
All right.
at the GM's report that says
Yeah.
it's out to bid and
The estimate
the
is
architect's
X.
estimate is this, and
All
then I'll make some comment about it's an architect's estimate, so we can't trust it.
Yeah. Okay. Before we adjourn, what's the latest on our solar?
The solar, the RFP is in. I haven't started reviewing. I have to put the review team together, and we have to do an evaluation, do a review, and then get it back.
When you say it's in, the consultant has created an RFP to send out?
No. The RFP to get a consultant on board is in from the. I think we had 3 consultants proposed. So we have 3 consultant RFPs
okay.
to review. I got him in last week, or
Alright.
really I got him in Friday the week before, but last week was the first time I've had a chance to look at it. Carlos of Jason's staff's been asking me to do the next step, which is pick who needs to review them, and I just haven't yet.
I like to see my staff bug it.
And I
Well,
just
yeah,
ha-
no, yeah.
I just
good.
haven't had a chance to do that. So that's one of my priorities this week is to get that going, so this way the reviewers can start reviewing it, so we don't lose more time. And then at that point,
No?
now he is. And then the next step for that is based on the review, either making a selection, doing negotiation and a selection to clarify, and then bring it to the committee and board, or interviews if it's close, and scheduling interviews. So that's really the next step.
Well, I would hope that we could have at least the identification of who you're selecting at our next engineering committee in the early part of
December.
first week and 2 of December.
We may not be there yet, because if there is, if there's close when you have to schedule interviews, those interviews won't be scheduled until December.
Right, but at least we would know
Who's in the interview?
who's in the interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
So-
see if we can't get that
so-
done.
One of the things we like to do is just to keep everything objective. Is we like to kind of hold it close until we send out the letters
Oh, yeah.
to everybody. So this way everybody finds out at the same time. Congratulations or sorry. So
Yeah, right.
yeah. So it just ends up being a little bit. Obviously, it's professional to do it that way, and also there's less feeling of impropriety that there was any favoritism.
Right.
So.
Do I recall you were involved in this at Rancho? Well, then let me be a bit bold, as usual. Would it make sense to have the engineering committee, if there is going to be a interview, have them as part of the interview team?
That's a discussion to have with General Manager Prum. I don't know.
Okay,
So
all right. I'm supposed to see. We're supposed to see him this afternoon at 3.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put that on our discussion.
we've
All
never,
right.
we've never done it that way. I can tell you. that.
I know, and you know, it's interesting. And I finally forced it over at Encina, and it really worked out well. Only because some of the other committee and the board were asking questions, and as I was on the interview committee, actually it was to hire Scott's
No, I
team.
know you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys.
I was a big purporter that they would get a great job, so it may bolster that situation. But we'll talk to the general manager. Okay, great.
Adjourned?
Anything else for the good of the order?